Hello, and thank you for checking out our yard podcast today. This is episode 24, and it's just me and Harley this time. I know you hate it, but it's all good because we're here to fuck your day up. We're going to be talking about 1997. It's a year in music. And without any further ado, let's get straight into it. Hit
Oh
that
yeah.
shit. All right. So it ain't like we exactly flipped a coin or anything to see who's going to go first. So personally, it don't matter to me. You want to go ahead with your first album real quick? 1997.
I'm scared.
Don't be scared.
You know what? Yeah, fuck it. I'll go ahead and do it.
I
In
guess.
my head, I'm like, I feel like I go like one way on my album selections, like, and I save the stuff for some reason. I think is a little different for last. But you know what? I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna jump off the rip, boy. One of the best albums in 1997. Here we go. My first pick is going to be Everywhere by Tim McGraw. I,
Hmm.
I feel like I feel like I do country last in these picks, and I don't know, just doing the years. I'm like, well, I usually do the hard rock and stuff or metal, whatever some kind of subgenre of metal,
Yeah.
and I don't know. I was like, you know what, fuck it, let's just start off with some country because this is a banger. I mean, holy shit, what an album!
Oh, dude. Fucking fantastic album. Tim
We got
McGraw knew exactly what he was doing.
Oh yeah, I mean, and I don't even know how many. Like, I haven't even looked it up, seen how many singles were actually on here. But I've listened to the album, of course, so many times. I would say the first three songs on the album are singles. Um, two, three, four, five. I don't shit. There's like six singles on this album that were played on the radio. I mean, it's crazy.
Jesus.
Like, it opens up with "Where the Green Grass Grows," one of the most iconic country songs of all time, if not one of the most iconic songs of all time. Like, when them fiddles kick in, everybody knows what's about to. Mm.
No, that's a fantastic song, and I feel like Tim McGraw, like on that song, is just like absolutely in his bag, and like kind of tying, you know, that like rhinestone cowboy kind of sound that was coming out of the like mid to late '80s and early '90s, and kind of tied it into like what not what country sounds like today, but like what it sounded like in like the mid 2000s.
Yeah,
So it was like right before it kind of went off the rails into bro country, which I can't say I'm a huge fan of, but like this is like when it comes to I guess what you would call pop country, this is one of the best like examples of that.
yeah.
If
This is like, because he was a neo traditionalist. Like, he was a big.
mm, like
Obviously, he
George
was a big
Strait, Keith Whitley, and guys like
Alan
that.
Jackson. Tracy
Hmm.
Lawrence. Like, he was in that range, and then for in this album, he branched out a little bit, and it was like pop country, pretty much what you said. Like, he started branching out with it, and dude, I mean, you can't go wrong with it. It's like, if you don't, I don't know, you say pop country, and like the word might seem like it's not good. I don't know. It might seem like it's too. I don't know. To me, like, when you say pop, I think some people could misinterpret it like,
Saying it's
it's just,
bad, but
yeah, but
pop,
it's not. Yeah, it's
it
just
just means
like it's
popular. Like
mainstream. Like, it's mainstream
exactly,
music. It's very easy accessible. Like, it's easy listening.
easy
Country
to
music.
digest.
Yeah, like Where the Green Grass Grows, one of the best. I mean, all time classic. Um, and then you have For a Little While And she stands in the sun. That song, I think about her for a minute. Whatever. Fucking they like that was a big hit. Still play on the radio. And then of course the ballad. This might be the biggest song on the album. And that's hard to say because like there's some big hits on here, but It's Your Love with Faith Hill. I mean, that's an
That's
all
a huge
timer.
song.
You know, it's your love. It does something to me. Dude, like it. There's not, and then you go into the other stuff that I really like. The deep cuts on here, like ain't that the way it always ends? That's a up, like kind of an upbeat. It's a, it's a heat, man. It's a great song. I mean, all of them are good to me. Really, like I don't. I'm looking at the track list, and I really don't have a song that I don't like on this album, honestly,
Yeah,
because like it goes into I do, but I don't. I should, but I won't. Like I don't. I do, but I don't is awesome. One of these days. That was. I think that was another single. Pretty sure because I've heard it on the radio. Like I know some people, like a good bit of people have heard. It's one of these days you're gonna love me. It's straight heat. Um, Hard on the ticker. That's a good one. Just a good country song, like a classic upbeat country song.
yeah,
You got that. And then of course the title track, which was another smash hit, was Everywhere. Man, like that song is so well written, beautiful storytelling. I love everyone. Like that's just one of those. It's one of those hits. It's a big song. Everybody knows it, but you can still listen to it every day, and it doesn't get old.
yeah.
Um, and then that one. I mean, like two song. Shit, I don't know. Like this is a hell of a 3 song run right here. Like you got Everywhere, Just to See You Smile, and You Just Get Better All the Time. Like Just to See You Smile, man. What a beautiful song that is too. Like back to back, like Everywhere, and then that. It's like, dude, it's hard to beat that shit. Like,
We're also written by Mark Nessler and Tony Martin, the same people that wrote "I Do But I Don't." Also helps write "Just to See You Smile" is the same writing team.
yeah, he used a lot of the same people most of the time. I mean,
Yeah. Tony Joe White, also known as the Swamp Fox, uh, wrote "You Just Get Better All the Time" with Johnny Christopher.
that's a good. I mean, it's a good song, man. Like,
That's right.
I don't know what to tell you. And then the last song is "You Turn Me On." It's just one of those, classic country, like just the upbeat country song. It's good. Like, I don't know, man. It's just like all over. There's hits. Like, there's probably 2, 3 songs that everybody could just listen to. You know, that everybody could find something they like about it. It's awesome. I mean, it's a great album, man. Like, there's not a bad spot. Like, there's not a song I don't like, but there are certain songs that I'm like, I could see might be a weak spot for certain people. Like
Yeah,
it might not be their cup of tea. Like Hard on the Ticker, You Turn Me On, or something like that. But I don't know. I'd have to give this album. I'll give it a 8. I give it an 8.5 out of 10. It's a
all
really
right.
solid. I mean, it's just I've listened to it a lot. I spent a lot of time, but it's awesome. Like you go on a road trip or something or whatever, like you turn this album on, you just let it play. Let it play out them 41 minutes. Like just let it go, man. It's awesome. Just a great like Tim McGraw, dude. Like I've said before, I've talked because I've had his albums on the last few episodes or some of the last episodes, and like Tim McGraw was dude was in his bag in the 90s. Like there's no other way to say it. He was just he had the perfect songwriting team, you know, putting out bangers, and then like, but if it wasn't for him, like there's, you could say, yeah, he didn't write his songs, but like, if it wasn't him singing them and bringing them to life, you know, it could have been somebody else, and the songs may have never hit the radio. You know,
Yeah,
so like there is like just because he didn't write the songs, like there's talent within Tim McGraw, you know, for sure. Like his thing, like his voice and you know guitar playing and stuff like that. So yeah, that's my
I get,
first.
I get that. One more question I was wanting to ask you: what do you think this album brought to the table that previous Tim McGraw albums may not have?
Kind of like what we talked about at the beginning, like just the pop country, like the mainstream, like it
Mm-hmm.
brought him over into every radio station. Dude, like you, of course, we were born in '96, so like we were a year old or whatever, right at a year old when this came out. So obviously, we don't have recollections of the music from them, but like I can remember being, 3, 4, like 90, like 2000, hell, even in the like 2004, like when I was 8, you were still hearing these songs on pop radio. Like you were hearing them on every radio station. Like this, I really believe because like Garth did a good job at it to an extent of bringing it mainstream. Like he brought it to a focal point, but like Tim made the music that put it in mainstream, that put it and everybody was listening to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no,
That's
it makes
that's where
perfect
I
sense.
think I think Tim McGraw really pushed the boundaries of what country music became as far as the popularity that
Mm,
followed after this album is what I feel like. That's the importance of this. Like it really is an important album to come out of the night, like without a doubt.
all right, sounds dope.
So that's why, like I said, not a bad song either. So, and then with the impactfulness, 8.5 out of 10. I mean, hell, for some people, you probably could go, 10 out of, like some people, and I wouldn't bat an eye if somebody said it was a perfect album, truthfully.
Yeah.
I mean, but with that being said, we'll let you go on to the next album or to
All right.
your first pick.
My first pick is a bit different than anything I've been talking about, but this is, in my opinion, the first year that electronic or dance music or whatever you want to call it really like actually exploded with the creativity they brought to the table. And one of the biggest examples of that, and probably one of the most iconic albums from the genre, period. And I'm not sure if it's the best selling dance album of all time, but I do know that The Fat of the Land by The Prodigy is definitely one of the biggest reasons that EDM is as big as it is today. And with EDM, it's like, I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, and it's not like music you would like actively try to break down, like on a review level, the way that we do these albums. But I really do feel like The Fat of the Land was one of the first albums where you could be like, holy shit, like even beyond, just being like something you can dance to. This is actually like really creatively put together music. And I'm not trying to disrespect like Aphex Twins and like what he was doing beforehand, but I just don't feel like I feel like those albums were kind of like they walked so that the Fat of the Land and the other EDM album I'm going to be talking about in this video, so these albums could run. But the Fat of the Land, I mean, hit after hit on this album, even for a dance album. And Firestarter and Breathe are the two singles that were released from the album. But the biggest hit was never released as a single because of the controversy off of seeming misogyny off of the album, which the band maintained its true interpretation of the song I'm talking about, which is, of course, Smack My Bitch Up. If you've never heard that, yes, you have. Through the band maintains that its true interpretation is, quote, doing anything intensely. The record was for the fans, only brainless people get some stupid message out of it. And I'm not going to agree or disagree with that. I mean, you see the video for it, it's pretty much like a POV of this person having just an incredibly wild night out. It starts off, they wake up, they drink a bottle of whiskey, they snort cocaine, they go to a club, they start feeling up on the strippers or like on the dancers and like the female party goers there. They eventually get into a fight with a dude, and then they bring this woman home, and the video ends with like this topless woman basically writing POV on top of this person holding a camera. And then at the very end of the video, this person sits up after lighting a cigarette and smoking it and wakes up and like lifts up, and you can see in the reflection across the room that it's been a woman this whole time. Just because like in this you're in your head, you're just like, oh yeah, this dude's crazy. And at the end of the video, it's like, oh shit, that's a girl. But the song itself, no matter how you feel about EDM, is definitely one of the more catchy songs that's ever come out, and one of the most iconic songs of the genre itself. Um, Outside of that, it goes into Breathe, which is one of the first singles they put out. It was technically released in '96, but it was on this album, which was released '97. Another, like every song on this album, just to, kind of not make this album, like I could talk about this album honestly for like 2 hours just because of what it brought to the table. But Breathe itself is a very, like, it's more like an electronic rock song. Um, It features samples from the Wu Tang Clan from The Mystery of Chess Boxing, as well as the drum break from the song Johnny the Fox Meets Jimmy the Weed by Thin Lizzy, which is one of our favorite bands. And there's like very, very, very iconic and very unique when it came to like the sampling these guys were doing, especially with dance music. And dance music itself, is based off of sampling. Pretty much 90% of it is.
Yeah.
So to hear something like Thin Lizzy being mixed with fucking Wu Tang Clan, you love to see it. But right after that, it goes into probably my favorite song on the album, which is Diesel Power, the Cool Keith, and absolute banger of a track. It goes into Funky Shit, which is again another banger of a track, and believe it or not, was it has a Beastie Boys sample on it, which Beastie Boys themselves were known for changing the game with sampling from Paul's Boutique, which is at that point really it's just like sampledelia. If you're not familiar, that's just a genre that's pretty much just like let's take as many samples as we can and turn it into a song. And for a group that did that even better than the Prodigy did, I'll be getting into that later on. But Funky Shit, fantastic sample. Serial Thriller is track 5 of 10 on the album. Another lovely like use of sampling. Right after that, Minefields, which is just your like pretty much like your run of the mill dance track. I mean, and that's in no disrespectful. I'm not trying to be disrespectful when I say that. I'm not saying I don't like this song, but it's just like, out of everything else on the album, it's like, this is a good filler. It is a good filler though. That's the difference. Then it goes into Narayan, which featuring Crispian Mills, which is a singer, songwriter, guitarist, and director from England. Best known for being the frontman of the psychedelic indie rock band Kula Shaker, which um, like that's you're adding a little too many genres in that band for me. But when he actually gets out of his comfort zone and does stuff with EDM, it's usually great. Right after that, it goes into track 8, which is Firestarter, which is one of the biggest hits on the album, as well as the second single that was released um, on the album. And again, just an absolute banger of a song. It's more of ravey. So definitely they're more in their EDM bag than they would be with like let's say Breathe. But right after that, it goes into the last 2 songs on the album, which is the 6.5 minute long song Climatize, and then it goes into the lovely ending of the album, which is Fuel My Fire, which is an L7 cover. And if you're unfamiliar with L7, their biggest hit was probably Pretend That We're Dead, and they're an all female punk rock band from LA, started in the 80s. If you've ever played Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. They're on the Radio X. It's the only song on that channel that is sung by a woman. So you'll definitely know which one it is. And it's also featuring Saffron, who is another English singer songwriter and lead singer of the musical group Republica. And wonderfully written song as far as everything like that goes. The album itself, like I really don't have, I, there's not much else to add to this album. It's one of the highest rated albums of all time. Um, some people were even trying to say it's a top 10 album of any genre ever, which that's a bit of a hot take. I feel like there is better. I feel like there is better music that has come out since then. Of course, like people were trying to say as a top 10 album in like 19 like the year it came, like year after it came out. So the immediate impact it had was just insane. But you know, I would have to give this album solid 8.5 out of 10. It is a very, very solid album, and if you want a good access point into dance music, this is a really good one. But in my opinion, not even the best electronic album that came out this year.
Wow. This is a good album, and it is. Now I'm not very familiar with the deep cuts as much. I mean, we've listened to it together. Of course, back in the day, it used to like smack my bitch up and fire starter and breathe.
Yeah,
That
they're
like
bangers for what it is. They are bangers, because like even back then, like I wasn't as big into dance music as I am now, but like you could see it.
yeah,
I mean, this album has sold 10 million copies worldwide,
like it's
so
great. It's
it's
kind of
globally
weird for
diamond.
what to me. It's kind of odd, like just how popular it was, like for being EDM, because like there wasn't EDM that was popular. Like it wasn't big back then. Like it started like there was like bigger songs like that were very like I guess dance or party whatever like driven.
Yeah,
Like you had stuff like which I could be wrong off the top of my head. I think it came out before this, but the um what was it the Eiffel 65
oh yeah,
blue.
I'm blue, blah blah dee, blah
Yeah,
blah.
I'm pretty sure that came out before. I haven't like on the just the top of my head. I think it came out like 95 or six or something
Came
like
out
that.
in
Like
'98. Actually, I just looked it up just to make
holy
sure
shit.
that I wouldn't be wrong. So this actually came out the year after.
Okay,
So there's a very big chance you could say that this was actually like
influence that.
somewhat influenced by it. And I would say it may have been more influenced by like people like Daft Punk
But
because that's in like a non-English speaking country. But because
yeah,
Eiffel 65 is Italian
yeah,
and the Prodigy is British and Daft Punk is French.
yeah.
So
So it's like this album kind of like I guess it was a paved the way for electronic music to actually be like to actually be in the mainstream.
yeah.
You know, like I don't know, like I kind of more curious on a personal level. I guess is when did you actually when was it you started getting into the electronic music and stuff? Like
Well,
what
um,
like four
in
or
the
5 years
early
ago?
So it started actually when we were in high school. It was like I was just dipping my toes into the water, and I was like something. I guess, like I don't like these days. I don't believe in what people call guilty pleasures. If you like something, you like it. I don't see a point in being ashamed in whatever you like. You like what you like. There's music for everybody. I mean, goddamn, Radiohead is a fan base.
Yeah.
Like it is what it is. But I would say like it started off with dubstep just because I was like, I was just trying to find music to what I considered at the time to be brutal. And dubstep was brutal, especially right when it started coming into the mainstream and fucking, people like Bass Nectar and, especially Skrillex, who was just massive in the early 2010s. And you said you had like the Equinox or whatever that song was. The oh my god, like you start hearing shit like that, and you're like, I don't know if I like this, but I sure as shit have never heard anything like this before. So I'll give it
Yeah.
another shot. And then you start finding all the subgenres within that genre itself. And that's when I started going back to like smack my bitch up because I saw that video when I was a kid, and I was like, holy shit, that's insane. And of course, I'd been hearing about Daft Punk my whole life, and I'd heard a song or two from them, but I never really took a deep dive into them. But the first album I actually sat down and listened to was The Fat of the Land, as far as an EDM album. Like the first one I actually just sat down and listened to all the way through was this album, and I feel like it kind of set in motion for me personally, like, you know, not being so scared to jump off into it. So I guess just to fully answer your question, I got into it like the way I am now, probably about, you know, I'd say about like 3 years ago. Like it's been since I've moved to Oregon.
Yeah. I thought it's I mean, I thought it was like during COVID or something like that.
Yeah, I mean the pandemic happened. I was like, fuck, may as well like many hands, many pots.
Yeah.
Let's branch out, see what happens.
But it really like even if you're not like I'll say this about the album, we'll go on to my pick, I guess. But like even as like me and Trevor do have a wide variety, I guess, of music, but even back then when we were like closed mind like, you know, more closed minded, like, listen to these songs like in the album, I don't know. Like even we could get into it back then, like as teenagers, like not being very open minded and like I feel like that has I feel like it that speaks about what kind of album it is. Like it can get to anybody.
Yeah,
I feel like you can get into this album at any point.
no, it's a wonderful song. It's a wonderful album. It really is. But with that being said, we are going into Harley's second album.
So with my second pick in '97, I have to go with an album, and I talked about how my dad found out about him on the '95 video, but I can't leave this album off. And some people, which I guess there's haters for everybody, like people like stuff like, and this band really hit a resurgence, like which they've been popular, honest, like since probably since this album really just brought like this is the one that got them into the started getting them in the mainstream and Ozfest and getting on big slots and stuff. But like I have to go with the second album from the Deftones,
Mm,
Around the Fur. Like iconic album photo. I mean, dude, I mean, this is one of the toughest and most coldest album openers of all time with My Own Summer Shove It. Like,
absolutely.
obviously, it's a hit. Obviously, everybody, most people have heard it if they've listened to Deftones. But my God, I mean, what a great way to open an album. Like, fucking, dude, Abe Cunningham, the drummer, he's one of my favorite drummers of all time. Dude's in the pocket, like, you can't, I don't know, like, you can't fuck with him, dude. Abe Cunningham, one of the best to ever do it. He's awesome. Like like his drumming carries this fucking album. I'm not gonna lie to you. I mean, the whole thing though, like, and Chino Marino's vocals, like they're awesome. The guitar, everything's just everything's great. Like this is what I felt like. Deftones started taking the next step, and they're started taking their next step in the to what they would end up becoming, which I feel like Deftones are a good band that's like overall. I feel like they're a good band that like evolves but doesn't stray from what they do.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like
no, I get that.
it's a damn. I don't know. Like they're really good at blending it and just doing everything right. Because like, and this is the album when we talk about 3 song runs. This is the album that actually I saw back in like 2019 or 2020, whatever, on Twitter, and somebody's like, okay, best 3 song run on an album, and they're like Deftones Around the Fur, and I remember somebody's like, some like somebody's like Mascara, Around the Fur, and Rickets as like the best 3 song run, and god damn if it ain't hard to beat that, brother. I mean,
You are not wrong, dude. That was probably what I was gonna say.
and like you got but I mean the second to me the second song on the album so iconic because I think about it, like when I hear that damn when like after my own summer, I always hear labia. I always hear it like just coming up next, like right in my ear, like, and that may have to do with may have to do a little bit with Brett riding around and listening to this album when I was a kid, and like always, of course he's, and I guess it's where I get it from. Like we're album listeners, you
Yeah,
know, like we listen to albums in their
yeah, and
entirety.
not to interrupt, but like I feel like a lot of people are. There's two different kinds of peoples when it comes to listening to music. One, you have people like us who we prefer listening to albums just like start to finish, and then you have people that will like pick out the hits or pick out the deep cuts, whatever they like from the albums, and just make an entire playlist. So it'll go from like Ghost to Taylor Swift to, and I'm not shitting on these bands. I'm just saying like like this is just an example. It goes from like fucking Bon Jovi to Tesla to Pantera to Taylor Swift to Wu Tang Clan to Daft Punk. And that's not really how an album goes. So that's just I like to hear like personally like what an album does. And one more little thing before I let you get back into it. This album flows incredibly well,
Oh,
song to song.
like it goes, dude. It doesn't miss a beat. It just goes perfect. I mean, like it doesn't. It's one of those albums. It's easy to listen to. Like when he was talking to Kenny about when he was on the '94, and I was talking about shit. What was it? Might have been, damn. I can't remember what album it was now that we was talking about.
Oh,
Shit. Well, I guess that fucks my point up. But anyways, essentially, like start. Oh, it was a rap out. Like listen to. I was talking about. It's like when you listen to an album, it's like you got low spot. It's just like there's nothing that catches you, and like it can like it loses your attention. Like you
yeah,
can like there might be a few songs here, and then like a song catches you, and you're like yeah, but then for the most part, you're just like you lose. You just kind of lose. You get lost in the sauce, as I like to say. You just like okay, this ain't doing it for me. But like around the fur, dude, you can just listen to it. Like you said, it flows well. Like you stay in it. Like it keeps you because it changes so much, and it's like it just keeps your mind going. You're like, damn, this is good. Like just keep listening to it all day. I mean,
yeah,
it's awesome. But like I said, that that 3 song run like mascara around the fur, rickets, awesome, and then it goes into the second biggest hit on the album, "Be Quiet and Drive Far Away," which is a banger, as everybody knows that has listened to Deftones. What a damn song that is! Like, be quiet and drive far away, man. Like that.
One of the best songs ever recorded from the 90s, if not in general. Like, I don't care if it's a hit or not. It's a goddamn amazing song.
It really is. Like, you just hear that, you just hear that riff, and you're like, man, like it just sends you to a place. You're like, this is, like you're chilling. Like it just takes you to a vibe place. All
Yeah,
like
that's
it's
all we ever wanted. Like,
Yeah, like it's an all time vibe song. Uh, Now then you get into the bottom half of this, and this is where shit starts getting nasty. Like you got lotion, die the flu, head up, which is a sleeper. I mean,
also featuring Max Cavalera from Soulfly and Sepultura.
yep. And man, and then the last song, it's just 10 song album. The last song is MX. Um, Dude, what a fucking MX is a wild ass song, dude. Like it's cool, and then it's like I'd have to look at the actual. I'd have to look at the actual track list because it's like the song's like 4 minutes, and then it's like an extra like 16 minutes, 20 minutes, or some bullshit that's like just kind of spaced out stuff, and like there's a bonus track. Like it's kind of weird. I don't know.
There are two bonus tracks. I'm actually looking at the notes on here, and it says MX by itself is 4 minutes 52 seconds, followed by 27 minutes and 21 seconds of
Yeah,
silence. Actually,
yeah,
no. You're right. You're right. That's my bad. The song itself ends at 4:52, followed by two hidden tracks, and around somewhere in between 1932 to 1955. So yeah, you were right. About 15 minutes of silence.
yeah,
And after an additional 12 minutes of silence, well, the first hidden track is called Bong Hit. And then the second hidden track after 12 minutes and 41 seconds of silence is called Damon or
yeah,
Damon. It's like Damone.
yeah.
And that ends the album after 37 minutes and 19 seconds on track 10.
But damn, it's wild. I
They're
don't know,
worth it. They're worth it, though.
but there's like so MX. There's a fun fact. Like there's a band, and I've like some people. They were mutuals of people that I befriended in Nashville, and um, became friends with them a little, like talking to them, and like they they came they there was this band, or I guess they're still around. There's a band called 30 Nights of Violence, which is they got their the name of their band from this song because it's like in the chorus it's like let me think, and it's like there's a woman saying like it's like, for instance, like Chino's like let me think, the woman's like let you think about what, it's like about girls and what else, and money and new clothes, and what do I get? It's like you get 30 nights, of violence, yeah, and sugar to love, and it's like God, like dude, it's just badass. Like I love that shit, man. Like it's hard to beat that. But it's the whole album is fucking great. Like I can't speak enough good things about it. And obviously, like I said, very a lot of childhood, nostalgia tied into it. So I might be a little biased to it. But I mean, it's just great. I mean, you can go back, listen to it all the time, and like shout out our friend Jordan, who he was listening to the '95 review and got hooked on the Deftones. He got hooked onto the Adrenaline album, and now and like I showed him this album. I was showing him some Deftones, and now he's getting hooked on them. Like he's getting involved, and he's like, man, he's like, I can't believe I went my life without them. I'm like, yeah. That's pretty good stuff, man.
Also, I got to shout out one of my favorite bands from the 90s that never gets the credit they deserve, Hum, because without Hum, The Deftones probably wouldn't have sounded the way they did. I'm not going to say they wouldn't have existed. Just the sound that they had that they were known for was heavily inspired, admittedly, by Chino Marino himself from the band Hum. And we talked about them in the 1995 episode, I believe. And just yeah, from their 1995 album, "You'd Prefer an Astronaut." If you haven't listened to that album, I highly recommend checking it out. But again, like even according to Chino Marino, he said, "quote This is a heavy record, and it's where Deftones get a big part of our influence from tone wise." So the guitar tone, if you like the Deftones guitar tone, definitely check out Hum. But I feel like Deftones took that sound and perfected it.
Yeah, for sure. For
But
shouting out. But we'll give you your next. We'll let you pick your second album.
I will right after you give us a rating.
No, I don't want to give a rec. No,
Mm,
I'll give it an 8 out of 10.
fair enough.
Very solid. Like I said, I don't want to be too glazing, like too biased about shit. That's just how I'm like. I don't know. I'm just yeah.
No, I get it.
Fuck. You know what? Yeah, I don't because I gave the Tim McGraw 8.5, which is goddamn that album's hard to beat. I don't know. Yeah, fuck. I'll give it 8.5 too. Fuck it.
Sounds good. I agree with that. I'd say 8.5, 9 at the very highest. That just kind of goes back to what I was talking about on one of the last episodes. Like we have such high standards for music that
Yeah.
a 10 out of 10 has to be like a perfect album. And
Yeah.
we do feel like there's more perfect albums than probably your average music critic. But
And
you
I'll.
know,
Oh, sorry.
no, you're all good. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say the thing about the perfect album is like with the Deftones is kind of what I'm talking about. Like to me, they just kept getting better. I don't think this is their best album. That's why, like, it's a great album, but I don't think it's their best. I mean, like, I think they just kept getting better and better. And like when we get into the years on down the road, I will let you guys know what my favorite album of theirs is,
All
and
right then.
it's probably me and Trevor have talked about it. Like it's one of his. It might be his. Well, yeah, it's either his first or second favorite album of theirs. I mean,
We
it's
pretty
hard.
much have the same two favorite Deftones albums, except I think ours are flip flop.
Yeah,
So it's like one and two. My one and two is your two and one.
yeah.
But with that being said, we're going to go into this next album and kind of sticking in the realm of alternative metal from the late '90s. This is one of both of ours. This is both of this is one of our favorite bands, and I'm speaking for both of us on this. And I would say arguably their most slept on album. Um, we are of course talking about "Science" by Incubus, and
Ooh,
Jesus Christ, what a if you look. I know a lot of people know Incubus as like the "It's driven me before." If you want to hear Incubus that makes you want to punch a hole in a wall, listen to Science because Jesus Christ, what an album! What an experience. Honestly, I would say this is one of the better albums they ever put out. I'm a really big fan of their early work, and I do like some of their older stuff. I do like some of their newer stuff, like pretty much everything after they, I don't know if they kicked out Dirk Lance or if Dirk just left the band. That's their original bassist, if y'all aren't familiar. But anyway, this whole album just they they took the sound they originally came up with, which was they are from the Coachella Valley in California, so in the '90s, being fans of funk at that, they're definitely like heavily influenced by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. But I feel like they went another direction with it, and I personally prefer the direction they went than what the Chili Peppers did. Not that we don't like them, but we just burn ourselves out on them in high school. Um, that being said, '97 was the year Science came out. It was recorded in a month. Came out on my dad's birthday in 1997. Shout out Sparky. And the album starts off. with Redefine, which I'm trying to think of an Incubus album with a better opening track than Redefine, and I'm having trouble. And I may be talking out of my ass on that, but Redefine is also one of my favorite Incubus songs, so I am a bit biased there. Um, Incredibly heavy. Like if you're used to what Incubus sounds like 90% of the time, especially all of their more mainstream work, you're like they have the capability of being heavy, but more often than not, they don't. They don't do that. Redefine absolutely takes that idea, shits in it, and throws it in your face. Redefine is an incredibly heavy song for any band to put out, much less Incubus of all people. And right after that, they keep up. They keep up that heavy spin with goes into Vitamin, which is another wonderful song. Right after that, it goes into the one of the three singles that was released for the album, New Skin, which again it was pretty much new metal at that point. It was originally on their, as well as a lot of the songs on this album, it was originally on their 1995 EP, Let Me Tell You About Root Beer. And everything, like this song, like a lot of people, some people will try to go out of their way and say that this is the best song they ever made. I highly disagree with that, but I still feel like it's not even the best song on the album, personally. But it is a fantastic song nonetheless, and I highly recommend it. Idiot Box is another great track right after that. Just fantastic song. Glass is right after that as well, and they just keep up that, this heavy sound that they were kind of like they were starting to sort of break away from it after that on the 1999 album, but we will get to that when we do. Magic Medicine, another absolute just ripper of a song. There really isn't a slow song on this album, so like it might sound a little repetitive going throughout this, but I promise you every song sounds vastly different from the last. And a great example of that is A Certain Shade of Green, which was the first like old Incubus song I ever heard, and it blew my mind that Dirk Lance, or actually at this point, Alex Katunich, who was also known as the Dirk Lance, and he was just doing, slapping the shit out of that thing and just full send on slap bass. So if you ever want to hear Incubus do funk metal, A Certain Shade of Green, another like, if I'm going to say there's a song on this album that's probably the most accessible, it's probably A Certain Shade of Green, and that's not really saying much as far as like the accessibility of this album as a whole. But again, this is a list for me and Harley, not for you, but we hope you do find some enjoyment in it. Right after that, it goes into Favorite Things, which is another wonderful song. Um, a little slower, but not really than the rest of the album. I would say the slowest song on the album is probably the one right after that, Summer Romance, also known as Anti Gravity Love Song. Definitely a fan favorite, kind of a cult classic song from them, and just amazing guitar work from Mike Einziger throughout the entire album, but especially on Anti Gravity Love Song. And right after that, it goes into Nebula, Deep Inside, Calgon Segway 1, which is the outro track, Calgon Segway 1, which is a 16-minute song. But good Lord, at what they were able to accomplish in less than an hour on this song, on this album. I feel like if there's anything else to add on this, this was one of the first like steps in the right direction as far as like what they were going to sound like later on. But I feel like they did kind of break away from the funkier aspect of what they were doing on this album when they started when they went into their next album, which is of course Make Yourself, which produced the biggest hit they ever put out. um, with that being said, um, it's kind of a combination of like alt metal, new metal, funk metal, rap metal. There's some techno, jazz. Sometimes, yeah, it's like believe it or not, the Incubus got jazzy on this album. Um,
They really
Magic
touched
Med-
everything. on.
Yeah, they touched everything on this album. I mean, Science themselves. I mean, they say it stands for whatever you it stands for whatever you want it to stand for, I guess. But basically, they various acronyms such as sailing catamarans is every nautical captain's ecstasy, as well as stupid cops invade everyone's natural chaotic energy. Sounds cool in eyes near communistic entities, and surreal cats and economics never communicate ecstatically. So just really whatever the hell you want it to stand for. Um, a very similar sound to like imagine 311 but angry, and I would say that's probably a good description of Science as a whole. Is there anything you want to add? Because I know you like this album quite a bit yourself.
Oh, I mean, I love everything Incubus, all Incubus. I mean, it's not fair for me to put my input like I am a Incubus dick rider. I've seen them live.
I have not, and I'm
I
very
mean,
jealous about
they
that.
are one of the they are one of the best live bands to ever do it. On that note, um, I mean, dude, there's just so much about them that's just great, man. Like this album, like this was before they were still raw. Like they had Fungus Among Us, and then they had Science, and like they were still finding the way, but they were doing so. Dude, they were so. How do I say it? Like they were to me, they were very instrumental into what music became in the late '90s. With as far as like when it started going into like new metal and like you know, like bringing like bringing funk and bringing like kind of mixing funk and metal and hip hop and mixing everything together. Because like Incubus has always had to scratch borders. I mean, it's just who they are. Like,
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic album. Like if you haven't listened to this album, please do.
and honestly, I could tell you, like, me and Trevor, we might have a little bias. Like, we do love it, but it might be a little harder for you to digest if you don't understand Incubus. Like if you're not a huge Incubus fan, it might be a little harder to digest. Like I said, I mean, but it might not be. I mean, it's I don't know. Like there's pretty much I'm saying I guess like if it's not a personal favorite of yours, hearing it the first time, without knowing
Then it ain't
Incubus.
for you. Like I
Well,
don't.
yeah, well, like like without knowing Incubus, I would say like I definitely wouldn't recommend this as the first album to listen to as for
Oh
somebody
yeah,
trying to
no,
get
I would.
into Incubus. This is like
Yeah,
this is an
this
album
is for
to
the
understand.
seasoned Incubus fan.
Yeah, that like yeah, like to know who they are, and then be like, okay, yeah, I'll listen to it, and you're like, oh, like this shit's awesome.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, great album, but also it's kind of like the Deftones. I feel like Incubus just kept getting better and better with each album they
absolutely.
do. So, but I will say, you talk about they define like opening the album. Um, I mean, you could make a case like make yourself. I don't know if it's my favorite. God, I love that album. It's tough to, but Privilege is the opener. That's not my favorite. Like that's not. It's an iconic opener for that album. Like when I hear it, I'm like, yes, I know what I'm doing, and like I know what I'm getting into. My mind's ready, but I don't know. But I mean, hell, Morning View opens up with "Nice to Know You." My God, like that's a hard way to open an album too. So
They know how to open an album. We'll leave it at that. Like
yeah, pretty much because like this. Now one of my favorite well, I mean, hell, A Crow Left for Murder. It opens up with Megalomaniac, which is a great song. Light Grenades. It opens up with a little like there's a little singing and talking and stuff with quicksand, but really like technically it's the first song, so it's the open, but it flows. It's kind of like the precursor, like flowing into it's the one that
Anomaly.
no, not anomaly. I almost said it, but I almost said anomaly, but kiss to send us off, which is a fucking banger. Fucking banger.
Mm.
And the bloodline just won the main event, pussies. Um. Anyways, I'm not getting on that, but yeah, I don't know. Like it, Incubus, like you said, they know how to damn open an album. I mean, they just, I don't know, they're fucking awesome. I love them.
Yeah,
I wish they'd put out a new album. It's been 7 years, so shout out Incubus, do something for
absolutely.
us. But with that, um, yeah. So what did you give the what's your rating on it?
On science, I would give it a solid. Honestly, I'm gonna have to stick with an 8.5 out of 10. I'd say I would just give it a little bit of an edge over the Fat of the Land. Um, Fantastic album, both of them, but I would just have to give the slight edge to Science as far as like what I prefer in my music taste.
Yeah.
But with that being said, we're going into old Hogmaster's third album. Oh,
All right. So my third pick is the debut album of one of the most iconic bands, one of the most popular bands, and they also like these a lot of these late 90s, but like these bands have had like a big resurgence lately for some reason. I guess just because people find their songs again, they're like, "Damn, this shit's banging," and they're like get big on TikTok and Twitter, whatever. Um, the debut album, I will go ahead and say it's not my favorite album. It's not my least favorite. I love this album a lot. It's so fucking raw. It's just like, man, these dudes were shooting for it. Like they were just doing something like, which the band members are like, this album fucking sucks. Like they they don't really care for it, but they do play songs off of it time to time because the fans want it. And like I guess now it's a little different because they can play the songs how they want to. Like make it their own again, like instead of because honestly they were just broken, like trying to put out an album and all that shit, and like, but it's the debut album of Limp Bizkit, $3 bill, y'all.
hmm.
Man, what the fuck? This like they've always have an intro, so like I don't count that as the open. They do that on every album. So it's like the intro, and then you got Pollution. What a fucking face melter that is, dude! Like that shit just
Absolutely.
just burns your ass as soon as it comes on. Um, Pollution's awesome. Like this would be a quick review because like this whole like all this shit's just great to me. I love it, love it, love it. Counterfeit, my favorite off this album. Probably I've never really thought about what my favorite Limp Bizkit song is because I love all of them. Like I love this might be my favorite Limp Bizkit song of all time. It might,
Shit.
if not, it's top three. You can't forget Golden Cobra.
Mm,
But but yeah, I mean you got Counterfeit. Just what a great song. I mean, and I think Fred Durst, like some of it's his problem. I don't think he cares too much about like the lyrical content because he's like just because like who they are now. I guess as people, it's like he might not relate to it as much, but you know, to me, it's still great. Um, but Counterfeit, awesome. Stuck, just I mean, hell, all these songs that do like they're just ass beaters, and course, like I said, it's a raw band. Like they were trying to find their place and do all this, and like, dude, I ain't gonna lie to you, they were getting into, like, Fred did a lot of singing, like a lot of screaming and stuff on this record. Like, of course, he did a good bit of rapping and stuff like that, but Stuck's one of them. Like, Nobody Loves Me. Oh,
Mm.
that's a great song
One of my
because
favorites on the album, personally.
nobody loves me. Nobody loves me a thing. Nobody loves me. Then you got Sour. Oh, I like that. I love that. I love, dude. Just reading the track listing again, I'm like, damn, this shit's awesome. Like, Sour. I don't know, man. Like his rhyme, like his rapping, I really got into a lot. Like on this, and then, but obviously his rapping and like his singing and stuff, obviously got a lot better as they went on. But uh, Stalemate, Sleeper song, very sleeper. Clunk is a good song. Like that's another one. Like people probably don't know, less known song, but damn, it's a fucking banger. Of course, the big hit, the single off here was Faith, which George Michael had a big problem with. He's like, they're ruining my song, blah, blah, whatever, you know. But it ended up being a big single for him, and hell, they still had to play it. If it wasn't for that song, like doing that cover, and people like, damn, what are these motherfuckers doing? And like just hearing a different version of that, Limp Bizkit might not be who they are today. So, I mean, great, for that, it's a good cover. Stink Finger, little odd, but it's like it's a damn. I mean, it's a good song. Indigo Flow, one of my favorite. Like, so Limp Bizkit has this thing on their albums like Indigo Flow. It's like Fred's. It's so cool because like Fred just starts rapping. It's like he's freestyle. It's like he's just rapping about what's around him, like what's actually like what they're actually doing as people in that moment. Like he's like, we're in the Indigo Flow house, like we're in the Indigo, the mansion or whatever out here in the hills. He's like, you know, there's nobody around us. I can run around naked or like, just do like just crazy shit like that. He doesn't necessarily say that, but I'm just saying like he just that's what's cool. And he's like, and then he shouts out all his friends. He's like, all of our friends. Like talking about the Deftones and Corn and like talking about everybody. They're like, yeah, just whatever it is, he's talking like what he says about them. It's just like, yeah, we're out here. Like, I don't know. I've always thought it's very neat on Limp Bizkit albums when he does that. Like, he just kind of raps about what's going on, like talking about his friends and talking about whatever and shit like that. Like, very realistic, you know, what's going on. I like it. Um, yeah, and then you got Leech and then Everything to end the album. I mean, great album, dude. Like, I don't, I don't know how much to say about it other than, like I said, this is another one too. Well, I might seem a little biased because I am a huge Limp Bizkit fan, but unfortunately, I didn't become a big Limp Bizkit fan until shout out the homie Tyler Eden in Nashville. Um, Till Tyler got me. He was talking about them and he was like, dude, he kept trying to get me to listen to them. I was like, no, they suck. Because that's just how everybody. Because I mean, honestly, most people around here were like, "Oh no, Limp Biscuit ain't good," blah blah blah. But he was like, "Dude, you just gotta listen." I was like, I finally was like, "I'm gonna get out of my own fucking way, open up, and I'm just gonna listen to an album." And I listened to listen to Significant Other the first time. I was like, "Damn, look, this shit's bang." And I asked, I was like, "What's your favorite song?" And he said, "Counterfeit." And I looked it up and I listened to this album and I was like, God damn, like it blew my fucking mind. I was like, I didn't know they were about this life. So that's what happened. Like sent me down a damn Limp Biscuit wormhole. So there I am. Since the since the pandemic, I'm a very big Limp Biscuit fan. They this is a great album. I mean, maybe to me it's a great album. It might not be for some because, like I said, it is raw and it's not. You know, maybe it's not like the iconic Limp Biscuit that most people would remember, but it's a really good album. Like it kind of shows you where they started, and you're like, and then looking back now, you're like, damn, they started here and got to where they are. It's like kind of insane. I don't know. It's a whole perspective thing, I guess, but
Oh, that's nice to think about for sure.
very much, I would, I guess personally, like I would give this album I would, I'll give it an eight. I'll give it an 8 out of 10.
Hell yeah. And
I could probably go higher, but I'm like trying to be realistic about stuff. So for me, that's what I'll do. Like I'll just call it an 8 out of 10.
hell yeah,
But
I would have to agree with you on that. It's a wonderful album. I don't think it's their best album, but it's definitely like I feel like Limp Bizkit's one of those bands, kind of like Nickelback or Creed or Puddle of Mud, Theory of a Dead Man, bands that are like easy to hate on, but they make undeniably good music. And I don't care if anybody's gonna try to say is like, oh, well, Limp Bizkit sucks. It's like, no, Fred Durst just sucked as a human being there for a few years. He's grown up. So
yeah.
you don't even have an excuse anymore. Wes Borland is one of the most original guitarists of his time, if not ever. So, and the music they make, their rhythm section alone is undeniably good.
Oh yeah, like
Sam Rivers and John Otto are just insane at bass and drums, respectively. But um,
John Otto, take me to the Matthews Bridge.
oh yeah, John Otto is the grease that cooks the biscuit. Um, that being said, we're going to go into, I would say, one of the two weirdest albums we're going to be talking about today, both of them from me. And this album inspired an entire children's show. All right, so we're going to start with that. It inspired a children's show, and not just a children's show. Probably one you've heard of. You ever heard of SpongeBob SquarePants? Congratulations. You've watched a product of the mollusk from Ween, and I don't care what anybody says about this album, this or Ween as a whole. Ween is amazing. And this album is by far the best album they ever put out, besides maybe the one from the year previous, which is 12 Golden Country Greats. And if you want more of a country album from them, the 96 album, like there was just so many good albums in the 96 episode. And we cut it down to three apiece, or I probably more than likely would have talked about it. That being said, The Mollusk from 1997 is a fantastic album.
great.
And yes, and according to Dean and Gene Wayne, their favorite album they've ever put out. And
Ocean man, take me
yep.
by the hand.
My hand, lead me to the land. That's you understand. But it starts off with I'm Dancing in the Show Tonight, which is a rework of a 1953 Christmas song, Are My Ears On Straight? And of course, that's probably the least weird part of the album because, again, it is Queen. Uh, the impact this album had was a direct influence on the series SpongeBob SquarePants. Like I said, Steven Hillenburg contacted the band shortly after the album's release, and he requested a song from them, which later became "You Do the Loop De Loop and Pull, and your shoes are looking cool. Over and back, left and right, bunny ears, and you're all right." And I probably butchered that, but hey, it's Wayne, so I'm sure they're not going to take it that much to offense if I messed up some words, but you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's Wayne and it's SpongeBob. I mean, they're like, I'm crossing my fingers here. They are that close.
Mhm.
Right after that, it goes into the title track, The Mollusk, which is just chef's kiss of a song. Polka Dot Tail, fantastic song. And to be fair, this album is very prog rock influenced, very psychedelia. It even has like sea shanties at some points. And right after Polka Dot Tail, it goes into I'll Be Your Johnny on the Spot, which is one of my favorite songs on the album. Then it goes into one of the biggest hits and arguably one of the best songs they ever put out, Mutilated Lips. And if you haven't heard Mutilated Lips, honest to God, stop this video right now. Go listen to it. It will blow your fucking mind. It is a fantastic song. It's psychedelic folk, essentially, art rock, whatever you want to call it, but that's what the whole album is, really. Right after that, it goes into The Blarney Stone, which is again another fantastic song, and everything on this album is nautical. You know, it's all related to the ocean and fish and just things that are related to the mariner experience. Right after that, it goes into It's Gonna Be parentheses all right. That's another fantastic song. I wouldn't say it's my favorite on the album, but right after that, it goes into another fantastic song, and emphasis on fantastic. The Golden Eel, Jesus Christ, just amazing what they were able to accomplish on this. I mean, hell, they had like 10 engineers on the album. So, I mean, when you have all these people coming together and doing that, then, you know, tis what it is. Right after that, it goes into one of the other singles on the album, Cold Blows the Wind, which is another just lovely song. It's based off of a Irish English folk song. Um, it's their kind of a spin on it. It's a rework of a traditional English folk song called The Unquiet Grave. Right after that, it goes into Pink Eye on My Leg, which you start to get that classic Wayne sense of humor, which is just silly, goofy, sometimes dirty. And speaking of dirty, it goes into Waving My Dick in the Wind, which I think is one of the funniest songs ever fucking made. Just hilarious song. I highly recommend it. And then it goes into easily my favorite song that Wayne ever made, Buckingham Green. And again, between that and Mutilated Lips, I feel like that's probably the two biggest, like as far as creativity goes, probably the two best examples of what Wayne is capable of as musicians. Gene and Dean Wayne are just genius level musicians. Really, they're like up there with like it's a different kind of genius though. They're not just like like doing that on guitar or anything, but it's just like what their ears hear compared to the normal musician's ear is just it's night and day. I'd put them up there like with your Les Claypools, your might be a bit of a stretch to say like Geddy Lee, but like people like that, they are that talented. It's a more of a subtlety in the way they instrumentalize their music, and you can definitely tell that just through like the very like again nautical like mariner sound that comes from this album. And right after that, it goes into the biggest song they ever made by a mile and a half, which we were singing earlier in this part of the video. Ocean Man, take me
Ocean,
by the hand, lead me to the land that you understand. And
ocean man, I
the
don't
voyage to
understand.
the corner of the globe is a real trip. Again, it's only 2 minutes and 7 seconds long, and Dean Wayne plays a mean ass solo on it. Gene Wayne, the singer, plays the mandolin on this song. So a nice little change of pace as far as the instrumentation goes, and then a solid, very dark closing track when She Wanted to Leave, which is also 2 seconds shy of being the longest song on the album between that and Cold Blows the Wind. So, as far as actually being a 100% unique to them song, it's the longest song that they wrote on the album because Cold Blows the Wind's just 2 seconds longer, but it's also kind of a rework of a folk song, like as I previously stated. The album's not even 44 minutes long, so it won't take that much time out of your day to listen to it. Um, the impact this album had alone, especially I would say the biggest amount of impact it had was definitely, spawning arguably the biggest kid show of all time, especially of the last 30 years. Um, this is easy 9 out of 10 album, if not a 9.5 out of 10 album. I hesitate to give it a 10 because Wayne, again, like I am a Primus fan, so I'm a bit of a hypocrite for saying Wayne might be a little too weird for me, but it's so weird that it's almost like it just kind of circles back to being not weird.
Yep.
And it is a very accessible album, especially considering how weird Wayne can get. I mean, these are the people that wrote like "I'm in the mood to move to the left 3 feet." God damn it! Like this like just goofy ass sense of humor going through and throughout their entire discography, and obviously you get that sense of humor on this album. But as a whole, this is an album that they definitely took themselves seriously as far as putting something together, and I'd have to give it a 9 out of 10.
Oh yeah, it's a great dude. Like it's a wonderful album, and like to ask questions, it's kind of hard because I do know, and of course, like to the people listening, we are kind of doing like what Kenny. We're trying to like incorporate what Kenny has brought to the show, and that's like asking us questions and like being informative about stuff like
Yeah,
about music, like just for other people to see like, oh well, like what is it like, like how does this, what's it, what's the meaning behind this or that or whatever, and like with this it's kind of like you can't, like I can't be like, hey, what's the impact of this album because it's
SpongeBob.
fucking SpongeBob SquarePants.
And
Uh,
now, I mean, and honestly, that is kind of like a cop out to say is like, well, it did spawn the biggest kids show of all time, and someone probably be like, okay, what did it do for music? It spawned the biggest kids show of all time. Do I
dude,
have to say more? Like,
dude, honestly, like,
seriously, like without this album, SpongeBob probably wouldn't exist the way you know it.
mm-hmm.
So, shout out Steven Hillenberg, rest in peace to the man. Shout out Gene and Dean Wayne, and yeah, the mollusk
And
forever.
I
Anthony
will
Fantano would say.
I will say, and like I said, it's kind of hard for me to be like ask some questions about it because I do know the album really well. It's like I will say about people that are curious about Gene and Dean Ween's like their musicianship. Go watch the South Park 25th anniversary concert tour that they did at the Red Rocks in Colorado because they played like Gene and like the Ween brothers played and they were the backing band for Trey Parker and Matt Stone, which they played too, but like they all played together, of course. And like there's a treat in there when Rush comes out, and they just like all of them just lose their fucking mind when Rush comes out, and it's I don't know, it's a very wholesome moment, like watching them all, you know.
It's always those like weird, like it's always those like quote. Sorry, there's a Harley Davidson going through our neighborhood.
That's
He
his
ain't wearing
man.
a helmet. He ain't wearing a helmet either. He needs to figure it the fuck out. But anyway, yeah, like one more thing I'll say about this album, it really Wayne as a whole. When it comes to like these next level, just like musical, like I'm trying to think of the word. Um, not pretty much like musical prodigies, essentially. When it comes like your Les Claypools, Geddy Lees, Neil Peart, people like that, they're the nicest people in the world. And then like no disrespect to like Eddie Van Halen or somebody like that, but he wasn't exactly known for being a nice dude. But at the end of the day, he kind of was because I mean he did play the beat it guitar solo for a 6 pack of beer. So like it's always these like, and I guess an example to my counterpoint for that would be like look at someone like Gene Simmons.
Yeah.
I rest my case. Anyway, we're going into Harley's fourth album.
Well, this is I had to make a call between this and another album, but because my number one is set in stone, like to me the best album to come out the year. But this album is my second, and like we've talked before, you can say this is my cop out answer because I talk about him all the time, and it's not my fault that he was he was on God. He was in God mode in the '90s. Um, it's the king. It's George fucking Strait, man. Like it's carrying your love with me.
Mm.
Um, such a great album. Like, of course, that's another thing. Like, and I know it's our opinions, and like there is, bias, and like I try to say, I know I say it a lot. Like I maybe it's me being biased, you know, but like I said, it is our like it's our opinion. So like obviously there is bias, but like oh my god, just an album in general, but like a country album, this is damn near perfect. I mean, this is the country that I love. Is George Strait? Like I love that neo traditionalist. Like I love the, it does have like the old, like it's great songs, great storytelling, and it's great. It's just, and it's George Strait singing who brings songs. He gives songs a whole new meaning and brings them life, and just like this whole album is that. I mean, for Christ, it has four number one hits on there, and then it had another song that was a top five. I mean, what do you have to say? I mean, the first three songs. It starts off the album. The first three songs are number ones. You have Roundabout Way, which is very upbeat country, just a great country song. It's nothing flashy. There's no back, like it's just a straight up country song. Like a good feeling. And then it goes into the title track, which is one of his biggest of all time. Carrying Your Love with Me. What
Fucking banger, by the way. Let's
like
just
it?
it
Yeah, like
just
no
is
need
what
to
it
say
is as
more.
far
Like
as that goes. Absolute.
I mean, hell, it was like me and my first ex-wife's song. You know, like
Oh,
how can you not love it, brother? You know, um, and then the third song is One Night at a Time. Like I said, number one hit. I mean, One Night at a Time. What a beautiful, like this is the songs that George Strait does well, yeah, he just does because he just dropped an album yesterday. Or he dropped the album today. It's fire. Um,
wait, he dropped one
but
today?
yeah, he dropped the album. Yeah, it dropped at midnight.
Jesus. Shout out George Strait for being arguably the
70.
most consistent musician of all time, to be completely fair. Like,
Oh yeah, I'm sure there'll be a number one on this album as well.
I'm calling it now. There's going to be two.
But I mean, I've heard some of them on the radio too, so I mean, I'm sure it's gonna happen. Um, yeah, one night at a time, but like one night at a time is like a very, I don't know how to explain it. It's one of his. It's one of those. Well, baby, you've got yours and I've got mine. We're gonna go one night at a time. Like it's one of those. It's one of those easy listening. It's almost obviously it's country, but it has a. I don't really know what the fuck to call it. Like it's just something that he does. Like he brings the songs. He can bring to a country song that's almost like a and I guess it's just like his southern, like his being close to the board, like the it's like an island vibe, I guess, like maybe like a, it almost sounds like it should be played at like a Mexican resort, like a big ass hotel, like something fancy, or like a Hawaiian island, or
Yeah, like Trop
like
Rock.
a, yeah, like a vacation. It's like he brings like the trop rock, or maybe yacht rock if you want, well, more trop rock, I guess. It's
Yeah.
kind of like he brings like a tropical vibe to country, and it's like this shouldn't work. but his voice makes it work, and it's like you listen to it and you're like, damn, like it's beautiful. And just a great, like, one of my favorites. Um, this, damn, I don't know if this is my favorite song. I don't know. It's hard for me to pick my favorite. This is actually his first song. He has two songs with the same title. She'll Leave You with a Smile. This one is not the number one hit from the 2002 album. Um, this is a fucking heartbreaker. Like, it's a tearjerker. Like, it hurts. If if you're not in the right state of mind, this song will break you down like a double barrel shotgun, and it'll make you like, you're gonna drink whiskey and call your ex wife and be like, you know, take the restraining order off. I'm coming over. Like, it's something serious. um, and then you got like another, like, his great songs that are just like upbeat country. Just a great song. You're like, yeah, this is like perfect. You got the fiddles and the steel guitars, and you're like, this shit's bussing. Won't you come home and talk to a stranger?
Mm.
Um, and then
Believe it or not, I've
you
actually
got
went out of my way to find that song on my own. Like it came across a country playlist one day, and is a
Won't you come
that's
home and
that's an
talk
insanely good song.
to a stranger? Dude, I'm telling you, like, George Strait could do it all. Like, any kind of country song, like slow ballad, like, the tear jerkers, like I said, She'll Leave You with a Smile. He knocks them out of the park. Like, if it's an upbeat country, fast paced song, that's just, if it's talking about, like, a spouse, or if it's just talking about, roping a bull, or if it's talking about driving your fucking truck down the goddamn road, like, it don't matter. Like, George Strait makes it awesome. Like, that's just all there is to it. And like, but you're right, like, it is a fucking banger. Um, and then you have the fourth number one hit off the album, Today My World Slipped Away, which is
God,
also a fucking tearjerker. Trevor knows I used to listen to this a lot in Gatlinburg. Um,
mm, a lot.
a
Mm.
lot. And then
I forget the dude that made those videos. It's kind of a sidestep off the album itself. But if y'all don't know what we're talking about,
Mary King.
Amiri King, and like pretty much it's just like Fords versus Chevys, and that shit's goddamn funny. Chevys made out of tornadoes and thunderstorms and bald eagle.
And hard
Fords are
dick.
made out of Fords are made out of getting butt fucked by your Uncle Rick in a cabin
In
in
Gatlinburg.
Gatlinburg.
A
A
lot.
lot.
But then you go into I Got a Funny Feeling. Like I said, that's another one of those upbeat countries, just, standard country song. Probably shouldn't be as great as it is, but it is because it's the king. Um, Not saying it's a bad song. It's just like, if it was anybody else, you'd be like, okay, yeah, this is like maybe a skippable track. But you listen to him, and it's like, damn, I'm vibing out. And
I do
and
concur.
then you got honestly one of the best story written songs of all, like, one of the best of all time, country wise. I mean, I guess you could go over. I just try to separate genres, because once you start going all time, you're like, God damn. Then you got to start thinking of like Thin Lizzy's catalog, which takes up everything. Um,
No, it's fucking. We'll get to Thin Lizzy one day, but the love
yeah.
we have for that band is that's my favorite classic rock band of all
Oh
time.
yeah. Yeah.
Phil
We'll
Lynott
get
is
on
one of the
that.
best front men of all time, but that's another story for another
Yeah,
day.
we can have a whole Thin Lizzy episode.
No, honest to God, yeah, like
But then like The Nerve, like I said, one of the best written country songs of all time.
the
Just
strings in that song. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I had to say the strings in that song, the way they're arranged and the way they're performed. Shout out to Nashville String Machine.
Ain't nothing
The
national about that, brother. That's all Texas.
Yeah, I know, but they're
George
from
Strait,
Nashville. But
George
still,
Strait don't he don't fuck with Nashville like that, brother. Like they, that's why like most people don't know this. Like because he's the king, they think that he's in um, they think he's in the Grand Ole Opry, like
nope.
Hall of whatever, and like he's actually not. Like he's not in the Grand Ole Opry because they told him they're like you want to join? He's like yeah, like he was talking to him. He's like yeah, hell I'll do it. I'll be a member or whatever. And they're like yeah, well um you can only bring certain people. You can only wear this. You can only you can't wear your like you have to wear like certain stuff. You can't wear your like signatures. Like you can't sing these songs. Like you have to do like related to this area and all this shit. And they're like, and you have to play here like you know however many times a year. And George Strait's like, no, y'all can get fucked. Like there was a big ordeal about it because they like everybody was in the uproar. They're like, "Oh, George Strait thinks he's better." He's like, "No," he's like, "Ain't nobody gonna tell me what to fucking do." He's like, like,
Not to
like
mention the Grand Ole Opry doesn't even let you have a drummer on
that's
stage.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. And like, George Strait, I mean, he has a band. Like he has the same band like he's had forever. Like he don't like if it's not like the people that he's like George Strait. Just backstories I get like he has a close knit of people that he keeps around him, and that's who he like. If they're not along for the ride, then he's not fucking with them. Like whoever's trying to get him, like he does what he wants. I mean, that's like, and I guess it's kind of odd because he's not I guess, a troublemaker. Like he hasn't done a lot of bullshit that's got him like in the tabloids and stuff like that. To think that he like you would think he just goes along with shit, but not like he does his own thing. Like he doesn't listen to what people do, man. But I guess that's why he is where he is. Like he makes the music he wants. He plays where he wants. He just does everything on himself. Like he's the fucking dude. But like I mean, honestly, hell, like the rest of the album, it to me it's just awesome. Like it's a great country album, like a pure country album just to go and listen to and like if that's what you're into. But like I don't know. I feel like I've kind of dove into George a little bit more on this. It's like he really is just he's just different, man. Like he's not like the way he brings like the life and shit that he brings to songs it's different than anybody else that's ever done it, you know. Like he
That's
just
right.
I don't know, like I don't, it's just great. It's great. Fucking that's me every chance I get. It's the night song. That's probably my either that one or She'll Leave You with a Smile will be my favorite off this album. Um, and then a real good place to start is the closing song on the album, which is I mean it's a banger. Like I said, like just a perfect country album to listen to. Like I would really truthfully like if somebody's really wanting to get into good country like 90s country or whatever, like I would recommend this album. And like because it's almost it's not like the Tim McGraw where it's like the main like it has the pop aspect in it, but it was obviously it did make it to mainstream because like Carrying Your Love with Me, you can hear it on every radio station, to this day. I mean, like it's just one of them one of those songs, that everybody resonates with. Like but like this album really did it had a big it I don't know. Like I said, like to me, it is. one of the most perfect done country albums, top to bottom. It doesn't falter anywhere in the album. Like it's just great the whole way through. If somebody's wanting to get in the George, like I said, that type of country, like that kind of might show, like it kind of bridges into what comes next, what came next in the country. Like it is one of those albums. Like you definitely don't want to miss it if you're trying to, go down that road and like, you know, be very knowledgeable about about that time frame. So for me, I had to give it a. Obviously, I'm very highly spoken about it, so I give it a. I have to give this one a 9 out of 10 because it's like, even though how great I've spoken about it, it's still not my favorite George Strait album. And also, he's one of those, like we've talked about before. It's like, to me, when George Strait started writing his song, most of his albums again, like to me, that's when it started getting even better, which was in '09 with the album Twang. And we'll get to that when we get there. But like to me, that's when he started, like the last 15 years of his historic career. Like that's when, to me, he just started, like he got on another leg. Like he's just been on this another run, like as far as the songwriting and like everything that goes along with it. So,
Yeah,
definitely, like I said, 9 out of 10, very impactful album. And if somebody wants to go, find out, like get into country, I mean, that's a great place to start, is right there with George Strait, Carrying Your Love With Me. So,
absolutely. And I
with
would
that,
say, I mean, I've listened to this album enough with him on my way to my dad's house in Iuka that like, there's not many questions I have for this other than like, compared to George Strait's other earlier releases, what do you think this brought to the table that those didn't?
like his other 90s albums, or like 80s
Just
and
really anything, but yeah, we can, just to simplify the question, we can stick with the '90s.
Okay. So, like I said before, I've talked, like when he got to, I don't know, like when he got to Easy Come, Easy Go in '93, I felt like that's when Dean Dillon came back and started writing songs with it for him and stuff. Um, that's when he hit another. He kind of turned a page, like another page with his music. Because to me, I'll say this, like to me, like George, I feel like his first. I don't know how many is this. His first 9 albums. Gosh damn. Holy, that's fucking crazy. From '81 to '89, he released 9 albums. That's insane. He
Jesus.
like those first nine out, like the '80s were really strong. Like it didn't, just to give you, like he had Straight Country, Straight from the Heart, Right or Wrong, This Fort Wars Ever Cross Your Mind, Something Special, Number 7, Oceanfront Property, If You Ain't Loving, You Ain't Living, Beyond the Blue Neon, you know, like all those albums. Like truthfully, I think with all the number ones on those albums, they averaged out. Just in the '80s, he was averaging probably like 2 or 3 number ones as a an album, which is crazy because his first one didn't even have a number one. Um, kind of insane to think about, but he had a different, like. Of course, Dean Dillon was still with him. Like, I don't know, his albums, like they were really solid. Like they did, to me, is like in the early '90s, they kind of took a dip. Like, Living It Up is a decent. Like as far as a full album, one of the weaker points, probably the weakest album. That or Holding My Own. You know, those would be my weaker George Strait album. Like Chill of an Early Fall is it's pretty good, but it's not like the highest point, which is a pure country soundtrack, like in the early '90s. That was like the best thing he did. until Easy Come Easy Go. Like those four albums is like he kind of, I wouldn't say a big dip because he still had number one hits, so obviously he was doing well. But like as far as full albums, it was kind of stagnant. You know what I'm saying? It was real top heavy. Like the hits were the hits and they were awesome, but outside of that, there wasn't much to look into the albums. You know, and like I think once Dean Dillon came back around, and then he kind of just switched it. I don't know like exactly what he did, but he just kind of like hit a different gear, and he just started right like his full albums just started getting better and better, and like Easy Come Easy Go, Lead On, Blue Clear Sky, which I've talked about those, you know, great albums. And
Hmm.
then Carrying Your Love with Me just seemed like that's when it caught. Like I think that's when he finally got back to making, like I said, the other albums are great, top to bottom. There might be a few songs, maybe a skip track here or there. But like Carrying Your Love with Me, I think just solidified where he was at that point, even though he'd already had so much success he'd already had this like so much success in 16 years, but it was like when he dropped this, he's 16 years in, he still drops four number one hits on an album, and it's like, what the fuck? Like you weren't really ready for that. You know what I mean?
No, I get that.
It's like I just feel like I really do feel like it changed the landscape for him personally, and like going forward, because then the rest of his albums just started, you know, after that really just picked like I said, hit another gear and just kept going. And I feel like there was, his best was yet to come, because I feel like at that point people might have been like I said, just a little stagnant with the full albums, and they're like, well, it might not, like he might not be who he was. But I think once he got to Carrying Your Love with Me, it really solidified, like, I don't know, he is like he's him, you know, like he's not going anywhere. This is George fucking Strait.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's how I view the album. Like it really was a landmark for him. So
Well, hell yeah. Well, with that being said, special guest Cushy asked me to talk about her favorite album of 1997, which oddly enough is my second favorite album of 1997. And going back into EDM, I feel like this is the stronger release that came out this season. And I also feel like this is the album, like, if The Prodigy didn't, like, set the EDM world on fire, then Homework by Daft Punk absolutely did. And this was the first album they ever put out. This album was completely recorded in their apartment, pretty much. Thomas Bangalter and Guy Manuel, they were broke as hell at the time when they recorded this, and they wanted like creative control of what they were doing. And thank God that they had it, because without that, I mean, this album may have never been the way, like it may have not had the impact that it did. And it was, I would say, a groundbreaking achievement, and just music as a whole, really. But I would definitely say it was a groundbreaking achievement as far as techno goes. And I'm just using techno just kind of as a like a blanket term for EDM. But I think the biggest thing that this album did was just kind of start. You know, it started their career in a way that not many people have been able to say that their first album did. And starts off with Daft and Direct, which is and I'm not probably going to say as much about this album just because there's not much lyrical content to be scavenged through. But Daft and Direct, the production on this album as a whole, and especially this first song, just top notch. What they were able to do with, basically, I think they put I don't even think they put like $1,000 into this album, and for it being that cheaply made of an album is so great. And Daff and Direct is a great example of that. It goes right after that. It goes into a little segue called WDPK 83.7 FM, which is almost kind of like imagine you're changing the radio, essentially. And it goes into Revolution 909, which was one of the biggest hits they had off of this album. It was one of the first ones. It has an opening skit and said to be kind of a reflection on the French government and its stands against rave parties. And it's, I mean, like the French at this time, they really thought it was dumb. Like rave parties, go into a middle of a warehouse and just, dropping Molly and having a good time. And we're not promoting drug use or anything, but that's just definitely part of the culture as far as that goes. And I would say like this definitely set in motion France's like upcoming like reign of just ruling EDM because like between them and especially Justice, I mean French EDM is like top tier EDM and especially French house music, which is what this band is primarily known for. And then immediately after that, it goes into one of the biggest hits they ever put out, "Da Funk," which is, as it's stated, very funky. It has multiple layers that are timed in every other bar, and at one point, the bass and the sound almost sounds like someone rapping. Like it has that kind of cadence, like that, like it just goes throughout doing that, and just absolutely fantastic song. Very iconic music video on top of that, directed by the wonderful Spike Jonze, or however you pronounce his name. I apologize if I butchered it, but Spike Jonze is one of the best, music video directors of all time. Once you watch one of his videos, you will never forget it, and that is not an exaggeration. That is just how his music videos are. Um, Phoenix goes into it right after that, and right after that is Fresh, and directly after that, it goes into probably the biggest song from this album. And as much as I enjoy this album, definitely this is probably my least favorite song on the album, "Around the World," because it says "around the world," I think at least 80 to 90 times because it's the only lyrics in the song. And
One of the
that's
biggest songs, dude. I love. I don't care. I love that song still. Like around the world is such a good.
Yeah, I mean, it's catchy as hell. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, by the time like 2 minutes in, you're like, I really wish they would say something different. And then by the time like 6 minutes goes by, you're just around the world. Like, you can't help yourself. It's goddamn catchy. It's an earworm. It gets stuck in your head. And, that's all you can hope for in a dance song because it's not made to be broken down and just like yeah, like the lyrical content on this song is just like it really speaks to me. No, he's saying around the world like 100 fucking times. There's nothing that super crazy. Shout out super crazy, but like there's nothing like that insane about like the way it's written like lyrically because again it's just them speaking into something that modulates their voice to make it sound robotic. Again, another big thing that Daft Punk has always been known for. Right after that, it goes into "Rolling and Scratching," which is the longest song on the album. Well, second longest song. Another great song, as long as it is. Right after that, "Teachers," "High Fidelity," both bangers. "Rock and Roll," which is the longest song in the album, at just over 7.5 minutes long. And honestly, kind of a rule of thumb with Daft Punk is the longer the song, usually the better it is. And the little the little I don't know if idiosyncrasies is the right word, but the just little details that they put in the song that are not a lot of like a lot of other EDM producers and artists will like overlook and be like, no, we don't need that. They'll put it in their songs and it makes the song infinitely better. So a lot of respect to Daft Punk for, taking care of the little things as well. Oh yeah is the song right after that. And another just fantastic song, even as short as it is. It comes in just over 2 minutes at 2 minutes and 3 seconds. And then it goes into the third single from the album, Burnin', which is more based off kind of like the Chicago house scene. So, when like French house is very sample heavy and very like, I don't really, it's kind of hard to like not differentiate the two, but it's kind of difficult to like look at both of them and be like, okay, what's the difference unless you've been listening to it for a long time. So I would definitely recommend checking out Burnin' because fantastic song. Again, iconic video, and it's more minimalistic than Defunk or even Around the World, but is nevertheless very, very funky. Kind of reminds you of like the music video is very much so kind of like a if you've ever heard of the movie from the 70s called Towering Inferno, which is pretty much just about like a skyscraper catching on fire, and that's kind of what this song sounds like, but in the best way. And right after that, it goes into the last three songs on the album: Endo, Silver Club, Alive, and Funk Ad, which is pretty much just Defunk, like 51 seconds of Defunk from earlier to close the album out. And this is a very lengthy album at almost 74 minutes long, but the impact it had on the house scene, especially the French house scene, it pretty much like kickstarted what we know today as French house. So any like of your
Really, just
justices,
EDM.
yeah, EDM,
Like it
really. I
just
mean,
changed it completely.
hmm and I mean, this album went top 10 in like 8 different countries. So, I mean, that goes to show you. And this was their first album. There's not even the best music they ever made, but definitely a great start. If you're gonna listen to a Daft Punk album to try to get into them, I would definitely recommend Discovery because like once we get to 2001, you will not be able to get me to shut up about this album. I'd have to look through the albums that came out in 2001, but this might be my favorite album from 2001. But highly recommended. Again, they recorded it in a span of about 2 years from their apartment, and just just a wonderful album, truly. So I would have to give this album a solid 9.5 out of 10. Um, yeah, I'd definitely have to give this a 9.5 out of 10. But that being said, we're going into Harley's last album.
But so I'm gonna give y'all a little warning. We're sitting about an hour 52 minutes. We might go over. We might have to splice this.
Yep.
Um, Trevor might have to do some editing. We're probably gonna go over 2 hours. Well, there's no problem. We're going
And
over 2 hours.
yeah, we
Um,
might wind up making this like a two-parter. So don't don't worry, it'll be done.
but this, I got a question
What's up?
behind the scenes. Do you want me? I mean, I say behind the scenes, just like talking, even though we're on air.
That's all good.
Should we do an intermission before we get on these last two albums?
Yeah,
Because I'm about like I know this album. I'm about to. It's probably gonna be a good 10, 15 minute spiel if I had to take a guess.
that's all good. I mean, same thing with me for my last album. So I mean, these two albums that we're about to talk about definitely going to need an intermission between. So
Let me give
go
y'all a
ahead.
little. Let me give you guys a little something to dance to while we break this down, and then we're gonna make. You know, we're gonna start back up, and then we're gonna hopefully make it just one long episode. But if worse comes to worse, split it up 1, 2. You
Buckle
know,
I Sue.
yeah. So let me play you a little music, get us into there.
Sounds good.
It's 3:30. Tell me that it's not over. I'm on my knees. This time I swear I'm sober. I've already got the shit I've needed off my chest. Now let me breathe. Just